Hey everyone, so welcome. My name is Ann Jerzyk. I'm the Director of Outreach and Advocacy for the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. I've been with CBF for about 12 years. And I got to tell you, Blair's one of my favorite people. I'm so glad she agreed to do this for us. She's actually been the moderator for several of my gardening sessions, so it's really wonderful to have her in her new role. She's now the statewide coordinator for the Virginia Conservation Assistance Program, something that CBF tries really hard to promote. So we're really glad that you're here. It's a great water quality program for residents. And a lot of people have got questions about what types of projects are eligible and how much money you can get and how you start the process. And Blair's going to take us through all of that tonight. I'll just say that you can put in your questions in the Q&A. And occasionally she's going to drop some links in the chat for you. So just make sure that you can see those two things on your screen. And Blair, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm, like I said earlier, so pleased to be here and honored that I was asked. And, you know, Anne, you were the start of my career, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. But I'm just really excited to share the VCAP program with you guys. And please, you can put questions in the Q&A and at least at the very end, we'll get to those questions. And if nothing else, you may also hear some rumbling. That is my cat who's running around the house right now, so we'll see. But let me pull up my presentation and we can get started. Okay, so Anne, can you see my first slide? All right, awesome. So, and all right. So again, we're going to talk about the Virginia Conservation Assistance Program and the Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts. So these are both of our logos. Oh, lovely. So our agenda for today, I'll talk more about how the soil and water districts work, what the association is, how VCAP, or what VCAP is, the history of VCAP, why VCAP was created, and how you all can be eligible for practices to be installed on your own property, and what the next steps would be for applying for a VCAP practice. So then we'll have questions at the end. So who am I? Why should you even be listening to me? So my career started with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. I was grassroots coordinator. Ann Jerzyk was my boss and worked with her for 4 years. And it was a wonderful experience. I was able to install rain gardens. I managed the underwater grasses restoration program and got to do advocacy events like the photo you see here with Meredith Dash, who now works for Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay. So great, wonderful experience, fresh out of college. And after that, I became a field educator for the Bay Foundation and got to teach little kids, big kids, adults, and also wonderful educational experience for me, figuring out how to convey information to a variety of people, what is compelling, how to be an adaptable person. And then, as luck would have it, I was hired by the Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts to be the VCAP coordinator. So this is a picture of me on Virginia Homegrown a handful of months ago, talking about different plants. It's the only picture I have right now of me in this role because I was recently hired. But I've known about the VCAP program since its inception, again, because of my work with Anne and the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. And it was automatically, in my mind, one of the coolest programs. I think we were both really excited that VCAP existed and that we were going to be encouraging homeowners and businesses and places of worship to manage their stormwater and helping them pay for those practices. So when this job came up, I definitely had to apply, and again, got so lucky that I was hired. So who is the Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts? So the association is a non-governmental, nonprofit association of 47 districts. So there's a lot of words, but we support the conservation districts in their work locally. And the districts were, the soil and water conservation world really was born out of the Dust Bowl in the 30s. So as a way to conserve natural resources and in particular manage soil and soil health through agriculture practices. So a big portion of the work of these districts is still agriculture, and they put these agricultural best management practices on the ground. So for those of you that are advocates with CBF, a lot of times you'll hear that come up, agricultural best management practices. These are things like streamside fencing and buffers and manure management, and nutrient management that help farmers protect water quality. So the districts are the ones that are putting that on the ground, and they also run educational programs like Envirothon and youth conservation camp. So education is also a big part of what the districts do, both to schools and school children, but also to people and farmers, and now these homeowners through our VCAP program. So each district has a board of directors that helps manage each local district. And so you guys might have voted on your soil and water boards in the past. So be thinking about that for your elections, and maybe that'll help make the connection for you. So that is who the districts are. So now the question is, what district do you live in? And this will be important later, but it also will help us see who's here and where you guys are coming from. So I am going to stop my share and give you guys a link. And it is to a program called Mentimeter. I'll do two things. So in the chat, I'm going to put a link to where you can find your district. So this is our website. It will take you to our website, the association website. And I'm going to copy this other link that will take you to the Mentimeter. So what I'd like you to do is use the first website to find which district you live in. And some of you might not be in a district because the association and the districts were born out of agriculture. Not every city is in a district. That's okay. That can be your answer as well, that you're not in a district. And then type it into the Mentimeter. And I'm going to share a screen of your answers, and that will show everybody what the answers are. I got one answer already. Okay, so, and if you can start to see the answers, if you want to like give me a thumbs up or put in the chat that you can see it, that would be awesome.
I see Tri-City.
Okay, great. So it'll get bigger and bigger the more people answer. So if they answer the same thing, so I'll admit I've seen Tri-City get bigger. So maybe multiple people are answering, but I'll give you guys some time to.
So Blair, we got a message that says chat is disabled, which I didn't think it was, so apologies for that. So, and I'm Tri-Cities, so that would mean that I'm the only one that answered. So
let's try this. So if everyone can see this now, that might help. Oh, look at that. Okay, so we've got someone that's from Anancock, Virginia. So if you're from Anancock, you're in the Eastern Shore Soil and Water Conservation District. So some of these districts will be like the name of the locality, and sometimes they will have a different name. So for instance, the district that covers Charlottesville, Albemarle, Nelson County, and one other county is Thomas Jefferson Soil and Water District. So it's not the locality name. Person who lives in Fairfax, you are in Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District. All right, cool, we got one Eastern Shore. Yeah, might have just had a little chat snafu, but sometimes that's the way it goes. Let's see if we can get some other answers. Okay, great. So we've got a Chesterfield and a CH that may have also been Chesterfield. So Chesterfield County and Midlothian are in James River Soil and Water Conservation District. Excellent. Yeah, we're definitely getting more answers. Wow, we got one in Tidewater. Tidewater is the district, which is excellent. Prince William is its own district, so it's one of those few soil and water districts that is one county, and it is called Prince William. All right, we got a TJ, excellent. You guys are from all over, this is wonderful. Norfolk, okay, so Norfolk's one of those funny ones. It's a city that's not in a district, but we'll talk about that more later too, about what that means for folks that are not currently in a district. And the same with Newport News. Give you guys maybe 30 more seconds and we'll see who else pops up. All right, we got a Virginia Dare. That's the Virginia Beach area. A few more minutes.
Blair, I entered Lynchburg for Heidi James. Haven't popped up yet, but that's one more coming.
Excellent. So Lynchburg is in Peaks of Otter, Soil and Water District. I am from Lynchburg, so hello. All right, we're settling out. So we'll take a look at this again. Just want to walk through this one more time. The Virginia Conservation Assistance Program is run entirely through the soil and water districts. So that's kind of why I wanted to do that, is get you guys familiar with which district you are living in. Again, historically they were agriculture, so agriculture focused. So maybe you aren't as familiar as maybe some of your local producers are, local farmers. Maybe you're a producer yourself. But please go back to these websites and take a look around, see what the association does, and figure out which district you live in. And this is great. We have a pretty wide variety of districts here. So all the way from the Eastern Shore over to Thomas Jefferson, Virginia Dare and Tidewater, up to Fairfax, up to Northern Virginia, and some things in between. So the VCAP program is a statewide program, so it is available to all of you guys. There are some cities that are not represented, but again, I'll touch on that. So thank you guys for participating in that Mentimeter. And this will come back later, so we'll do some more shares. But let me share my screen one more time. So for those of you, or for all of you guys that are here, just as a reminder, I was an educator and taught online during the pandemic. So that's kind of where this comes from, is I like those types of questions where we can involve people. So we know where you guys live. You guys know what district you would be working with for VCAP. Now, what is VCAP exactly? The VCAP is the Virginia Conservation Assistance Program, and it's a cost share program that provides financial incentives to property owners to install stormwater best management practices. So it's a lot of long multi-syllable words to say this is a program that is going to give people that live in Virginia money to help improve water quality on their own property. So it doesn't matter if it's going to be your house, a school, a place of worship, your business. All of those are eligible for VCAP, and the goal is to manage stormwater. So I kind of highlighted the big words that you would want to remember. So again, cost share, which means that we pay for part of the practice or a portion of the cost, and homeowners or landowners would pay for a portion as well, the same way the agriculture program operates, and we are managing stormwater. So what does that look like on the ground? So before we even jump into the nuts and bolts, I just wanted to show some images of practices so you have an idea of what this could look like where you guys live. So, oops, too fast. Here is a before picture of a home in Northern Virginia, a narrow lot, and this person had terrible problems with water and flooding. So you can see standing water. And after the practice was installed, this is what it looks like. So these plants are going to be there to help manage that stormwater. And the upright system on the left is actually kind of an innovative rain garden design. So helping infiltrate that water on site. And the rain versus the sun doesn't hurt. This is another before image. This was from Colonial Soil and Water Districts in near Williamsburg. Bare ground, not really anything happy to grow there. And this is an after image of a nice planted practice that again is going to help treat that any kind of stormwater that might come there and hold that eroding soil in place. This is a before image from Virginia Dare, so down in Virginia Beach. And you can see person has a driveway that seems to be doing fine. But what we might not be seeing is that water sheet flowing off of the driveway and into a storm sewer system carrying pollutants. You can see a little bit of erosion on the driveway where the water might be standing. And this is actually a process picture almost at the end of this practice, but I chose it because of the downspout you can see on the edge of the roof. So this is a permeable paver practice. So it has a reservoir underneath. It's going to hold that water, and they're kind of sweeping little gravel into the crevices of the permeable pavers that are going to help infiltrate. And this person is directing downspouts into this practice. So again, it's going to infiltrate that water instead of having it run off. This was from the Northern Neck Soil and Water District. You can see eroding shorelines. And this is an after image of a living shoreline. So beautiful grasses that are planted that are going to help hold that soil in place. So where did VCAP come from? I've touched on this a little bit. So this again is a program that is meant to retrofit onto existing properties, onto these developed non-agricultural lands, as it says. And it was actually based off the North Carolina program. So they did it first, and they very kindly loaned us all of their materials to get started. And the association's urban committee asked for a small grant to begin installing practices. So there was these 4 districts: Culpeper, Hanover, Caroline, Piedmont, and TJ were the originators. And so they are pretty well versed. If you live in one of those districts, they've got a pretty smooth operation right now. And the program is entirely based on improving water quality. So we already had this agricultural best management practice system set up that was really operating as fast as they could, but we didn't have an equivalent in quote unquote urban areas. And that's what VCAP was meant to serve. And it was supposed to treat pollution to meet the Chesapeake Bay TMDL, the total maximum daily load. So again, this cleanup plan to help improve Chesapeake Bay water quality and local water quality. And because of that, the VCAP was only offered in Chesapeake Bay districts until recently. So in the last handful of years, we've expanded to include all of Virginia, but at the time it was only Chesapeake Bay to meet those goals. So again, that is the source of everything with this program, is improving water quality. And for many of you, this might be old hat, especially if you're longtime CBF webinar attendees or advocates, but why do we care about improving water quality at all? And it's because water quality problems really are derived from this runoff that we have. So non-point source pollution is the fancy term for pollution that is not coming out of a pipe. So it is not at a place you can point to, is what I would say to kids. So a point source might be a wastewater treatment plant. A non-point source might be a farm or your house or a road. And these surfaces are not infiltrating water at all. So where our rainfall and snow melt might have once soaked into the ground and recharged our aquifers and groundwater and drained slowly into rivers and streams over time, it is now moving very fast because we want to keep it away from our properties. We want to be able to drive roads without water on them, keep ourselves safe in our cars, and keep our houses dry. which is a completely reasonable request. But the process by which we've done this is to very often shunt that water directly into a pipe. And in some cases, it goes straight into a river or stream. And in some cases, it is treated at a treatment plant before it is put back into the river. Kind of varies. And all of this runoff, because it is going straight into a pipe and then maybe straight into a river, we are concentrating our pollution where in the past we might have treated it by having it filter through plants and filter through the ground before it goes into the rivers and streams. So there are multiple issues at play here. There's the water quality issue of carrying pollutants in the water, but there's also a volume and a speed issue. So the water, when it reaches the streams out of that conveyance or even sheet flow, it is moving very fast, and it is a higher volume than streams are historically had. So that's how we end up with these really deeply incised streams, these undercut banks, and again, carrying that pollution downstream. And it's only going to get worse because of climate change. We've got more frequent storms, more intense storms, and we're a growing population. So we are only going to have more pollution to contend with. And these BMPs, they have a whole host of benefits, of course. So again, I mentioned they reduce the quantity of runoff. They're helping stabilize the soils, recharging groundwater, mitigating erosion, creating habitat for all types of wildlife. We have more riparian buffers, these areas right along streams that are so important to water quality, creating a sense of place and providing education. They can also serve that purpose, and stabilizing shorelines, specifically with our living shorelines. So take a look at this list. I have another question for you guys, and we won't have a chat snafu this time, I don't think. But my question for you is, why would you be installing a stormwater BMP? Like, which of these benefits is most meaningful to you? Maybe you already have a BMP on your property or at your school or at your work, and so you experience that benefit every day. Or maybe in the back of your mind, you're thinking, well, I'm a landscaper, and so for me, it's about the all the opportunity for my business in creating these habitats. So look at this list and get through it. And I am going to find my link for you guys. Alrighty, it's coming in the chat. So in the chat, you should see that Menti link. Click on it, it'll take you to the Mentimeter, and you can tell us why might you consider installing a BMP. What is the benefit that is really resonating with you right now? I'll give you guys some time. All right, we got a couple coming in. Wonderful. As they pop in, I keep thinking, well, that one's my favorite. That one's the most important. They're all important. Right, we had 13 responses last time, so let's see if we can get 15. Wonderful. We'll scroll back through these ones. We've got a couple more. All right, well, we did get, oh, we got our 15. I think I said 15. So let's take a look, and maybe some more answers will come in. That's great. But we'll just take a look at the different options here, or the different answers you guys gave. So I was wondering if there would be a theme that would present itself, but I haven't seen a theme necessarily. And actually, you know what? I didn't share my screen. So now we should all be seeing the screen with the answers on it. And if that's not the case, Anne, let me know. But I was hoping there'd be a theme. I don't see a theme, which is excellent, because that means that we're all coming here for different reasons, but we have the same goal, or we would experience the same end result, I guess I would say. So the great thing about these stormwater BMPs and VCAP in general is that we can offer so much. We can meet people where they're at, whatever their goal is. So we've got things like slow sheet flow from my driveway, reduce pollution from runoff, improve water quality. Let's see, combat erosion along shorelines. So these are all like the water quality kind of benefits we talked about. But we also have restore native habitat, wildlife habitat and native plantings, enhance native flora. Yeah, all the reasons listed. Wildlife and nature's aesthetics are my number ones. Attract native bees and birds. So these are the people that maybe are birders or naturalists, or really enjoy that like visual component of some of the stormwater BMPs. And we definitely have like a living shoreline theme. So we've got some folks from areas where living shorelines would be critical for them. Lots of benefits there. And this like local connection that protecting our local water quality or local habitat. So keep the Roanoke River cleaner is wonderful. And then we got someone who just finished a bioswale, amazing. But the one that I really like is it's the right thing to do. And that's just really warms my heart. So thank you so much, whoever put that in there. It is the right thing to do, but whatever gets you here and helps protect water quality, I'm here for it. So I will go back to my presentation. Keep these ideas or these thoughts in mind about why you might install a stormwater BMP. Okay. Okay, so
you're back to good. You're back to good. Yeah, I just said you're back to good.
Okay, thank you. You're the best. So, yeah, why would you consider a stormwater BMP? Why would you participate in VCAP? So just to kind of round this out, all of our projects are reported to the state and the Chesapeake Bay program so that the water quality improvements become a part of the Bay model. So become part of that TMDL and help improve the Chesapeake Bay. So you might not know that if people have participated in VCAP in the past, but that is something that is going on. And in order to report our practices, we have a couple of specifications that we have to meet. These come from BMP warehouses from the federal level to dictating that these BMPs are installed in a way that is going to make them improve water quality. The most important ones for landowners are the plants, if they are a planted practice, have to be native, and they are native based on the flora of Virginia. So if you're not familiar, the flora of Virginia originally was a big old textbook, and it listed all of the plants that were considered native in the area, some naturalized species and invasive species, but they were labeled as such. And now the flora of Virginia has a truly phenomenal digital version where you can look and see where species are native or naturalized or invasive. So if you never spent time on the digital flora of Virginia, go for it. But that is a very important part of our practice specifications. And again, Anne's given presentations on this, that our native plants are better adapted to living here. They typically can survive the droughts and the floods that Virginia experiences. They provide that pollinator habitat in a way that non-native plants do not. Our practices have to treat a 1-inch storm. Right now, that's the specification for stormwater BMPs. And who knows, maybe it'll change with climate change. But right now, 1-inch storms. And there are some material specifications. So certain permeable paver products that are kind of approved, certain velocities and steepness, the slope of certain practices, and the width of certain practices that are a part of building them in a way that they are going to survive storms and mitigate stormwater and not have issues. Now, as a homeowner, that's important to know because it means that you can receive reimbursement from VCAP, but engineers already designed to these standards largely. So if you are contracting a really big project with an engineer, like a living shoreline or permeable pavers, they're already doing this. But again, I bring this up to say that we are moving towards a goal that is water quality, and this is what helps us keep track of that data. The last one is that our practices have to be maintained for 10 years. And again, that's a goal that is tied to improving water quality. We want to have practices that are going to do their job for a long time so that we can keep track of the progress of Chesapeake Bay cleanup and Southern Withers cleanup as well. And in the 5 years since VCAP was started, there have been about 2,000 pounds of nitrogen eliminated from the bay, 300 pounds of phosphorus, and 350,000 pounds of sediment. So it's a lot. It's making an impact if that number is important to you. So that's kind of some nuts and bolts, but who can even apply for a VCAP practice? Who is eligible? So again, I've mentioned this a couple of times. This program started as an urban program, but we're trying to move away from that word. It is not exclusive to cities. It is anywhere people are living and working and having the things that come along with that. So it can be your home. You could have an HOA, so any property associated with an HOA, if it's approved by them, schools, places of worship, parks, businesses, nonprofits. Basically, if your land is not in agricultural production, it qualifies. And that's because we have an agriculture program that should be helping any land in agricultural production. So you come to the wrong place, but there still exists an option for agricultural production land. State and federally owned properties don't qualify, and that has to do with where our money comes from. And then active construction sites, and this is to maintain the integrity of the BMPs. We don't want to install something that might be blown out by an active construction site or maybe is in the way of some kind of equipment that needs to get in. So we just ask that for most of the practices, construction be finished for a year, with the exception of permeable pavers and living shorelines, because we want you to be able to install those without having to install a driveway and wait a year. So for those, it's just when occupation permits are issued. Everything else, wait 1 year. Now, let's say you're eligible. You are a homeowner, or maybe you're a school teacher, or maybe you're a parks administrator for your locality, and you're like, oh yeah, I qualify, I'm not in agriculture land, and it's been a year since I built something. The other aspect of VCAP that is an eligibility requirement is that you have a resource concern. So this is a term that comes from, again, the agriculture world, but it basically means you have a water quality problem. And we have 3 different resource concerns or water quality problems we're looking for. So those are erosion or deposition, poor cover, or excess runoff. Now, erosion and poor cover, those are pretty obvious to your eye. You're gonna be able to see that bare soil or gullies and rills. Excess runoff is a little bit harder sometimes to understand or think about, conceive, because our goal, of course, is to not have runoff. That's how we build our stormwater systems, to move that water away quickly. So what excess runoff means is any place where an impervious surface is concentrating that runoff and could cause a problem downstream with that quantity or speed issue. So excess runoff applies to your driveway, your roof, where it comes down a downspout, and also lawns in a lot of cases, because in a really heavy storm, those lawns will lay flat, the grass will lay flat, and they almost act like concrete. So yes, having grass cover is better than having asphalt, but sometimes based on the topography or maybe where the water is coming from, that lawn can also be a problem. And these overlap a lot of the time. You're not necessarily going to see just one. To give you guys an idea of what that looks like on the ground, these are some pictures of our resource concerns, those water quality issues. So we've got erosion on the left, which also has the poor cover. In the middle, we've got that excess runoff downspout that is draining into the yard, and there are probably more downspouts behind where this picture was taken, and it's causing that erosion and poor cover. And then on the right, we've got a driveway, again, causing that excess runoff, but you can also see some deposition there as well. So while I continue, let me just check my time. So again, let's say you have one of these issues, or your neighbor does, or at your children's school. What are your different options to treat it? What are the practices that VCAP has a cost share for? So these are our practices. So I'm gonna go over them here, and then I've got pictures of most of them. So we've got conservation landscaping, which is a fancy term for our native plantings. Impervious surface removals, we want to eliminate those surfaces that don't drain, like your driveway, and replace them with something else. So most often we see that that is with permeable pavement, but we've also had practices where people take out part of their driveway and replace it with conservation landscaping or a rain garden. Dry wells and infiltration, so those are on the left, in the middle, and at the bottom. These are kind of similar practices at different scales, but they are underground. They're not necessarily visible and helping create a reservoir for that water so that it can infiltrate slowly. Rainwater harvesting is a fancy term for cisterns or rain barrels. Vegetated conveyance system is almost like a linear rain garden in a lot of ways. Bioretention basins are big rain gardens. These are depressions that are filled with native plants to hold that water in place. Green roofs, it's a roof that's green with plants on it. And then living shorelines, these planted shorelines that are stabilized to help prevent erosion. So we have a whole suite of options here. And within some of these practices, there are kind of subcategories as well to suit specific needs. I'll go over a little bit of that in a bit. Okay. So conservation landscaping, like I mentioned, we are trying to manage typically erosion and poor cover with native plantings. So you can see they can be very beautiful. The one on the right is near Richmond, and it has just grown up into this absolutely stunning garden, offering so much visually. It's offering to pollinators, and it's protecting a lake, sorry, that is right behind where this photo is taken, or the image on the right. Our conservation landscaping includes 5 subcategories. So meadows, mulch beds, trees, riparian buffers, and filter strips. And it's not up to you guys to determine which one makes the most sense on your site, although obviously the landowner can offer their preference. We have those different divisions largely for our reporting so that we can report the proper pollution removal. This is a great option for people that want to do the right thing and aren't sure where to start, because it's not an engineered practice. You can get a design from your local plant nursery or your master gardeners and install it yourself. And VCAP also reimburses for up to 16 volunteer hours if you do the work yourself. Okay, so that's one of the top ones. Our rain gardens and bioretention, this is kind of like the next level up. These are shallow basins that are meant to detain stormwater and help it infiltrate using the plants in the rain garden. So those roots are really helping the water move downward, recharge the groundwater, not having it run off and carry pollution. And they help process some of that pollution, including heavy metals, which is amazing. So the one on the right, you can really see it working. There's water standing there, but it should only stand for 24, maybe 48 hours at the most. So it shouldn't create mosquitoes, but it's helping treat that stormwater. And they're very beautiful, very functional. This one is actually at Graves Mountain Lodge, the one on the right, that is our association president's business, which is kind of neat. One other comment about this. If you've been to Anne's other presentation, she might have mentioned for rain gardens, you have to have a certain infiltration rate. So that's just based on your soil type. For VCAP, it's 1/2 inch an hour. And I'm happy to talk about that more. And there are ways to work around that if you don't have great soil infiltration, including amendments or underdrains. Now, dry wells and infiltration trenches, these can very often not be visible to the eye, or they're not a planted practice the way conservation landscaping or rain gardens are. So they can be these bins underground, like the one you see on the left. They can be hollow cubes, excuse me, that you fill with rock and you can cover with soil, filter fabric and soil. Or they can be like this infiltration trench on the right, where it's kind of this aesthetic riverbed look, but it is, again, a reservoir to hold that water in place and help it infiltrate. The difference here really is the volume of water, whether you're qualifying for a dry well or an infiltration trench. The dry wells in particular can be nice if you want to maintain your lawn, for instance, or if you have a really tight space, it can kind of help in a way that a rain garden might be a little more difficult. Let me take one sip. And then we'll go to our next practice. Permeable pavement. So again, we've got that same reservoir that we saw with dry wells and infiltration trenches, and really with rain gardens as well. But we have a surface that you could drive a car over top of, or have a patio with your chairs and your grill. And there's a reservoir underneath. And reservoir for a lot of these practices just means certain rock size where you're using the pore space between the rocks to store that water. This one is typically more expensive than rain gardens or conservation landscapings. It typically needs to be engineered by a company, and the products can sometimes be kind of particular, especially if you want a certain aesthetic. But it is possibly the most unnoticeable of them because it will look like your driveway at the end. You really have to keep these clear of debris like pine needles. They like to get in the cracks and block everything up, and they really should be vacuumed or swept pretty often to keep them functioning. Rainwater harvesting is kind of a fancy term for cistern or rain barrel, like I said. For VCAP to qualify, you have to be storing at least 250 gallons. And again, with that 1-inch storm treatment requirement, it's sized to the area that is draining into it. So there's a little bit of math there, but it's typically a pretty straightforward formula. And not many people say, I have an erosion problem and then solve it with a cistern. That would be a very rare person. A lot of people come to their district and say, excuse me, I have a garden and I need the water, or I am tired of spending my hard-earned money on watering my landscaping. So the one on the left, you can see that a school, so that's also very popular for schools that have raised beds, and also places of worship that have gardening. Living shorelines, these are stabilization practices on tidal portions of Virginia. So there is not an option for our inland folks, apologies. This is really focusing on our Eastern Shore friends, Tidewater, that kind of area, Virginia Dare, Virginia Beach, those kind of regions. And they are creating this sill or a barrier between the wave action outside on the water and the planted zone on the inside of the practice. So these 3 images are all using oyster shell in various combinations, but there are also riprap sills We even saw an application for someone that wanted to use down trees in their creek. So lots of options. The one on the left is oyster shell bags. And then the one in the middle is a patented oyster castle made by someone local to Richmond. And then the one on the right are oyster castles that are a little more grown in. And again, they've got those plantings on the upland side. This absolutely requires an engineer more often than not. And you have some paperwork associated with them, permits. We ask for these practices to be reviewed by the Shoreline Erosion Advisory Service or the Institute of Marine Science. There's just a couple of moving parts. But the nice thing is the district staffers that work on these living shorelines are very knowledgeable and very experienced. So if you are looking for a living shoreline practice, those district staff are pretty keyed in and they can really help with this process. But I want you to be aware that it is a little more complex. So they're beautiful, they're functional, you're all excited about your cistern or your rain garden or whatever it might be, your living shoreline. What is this cost share rate or what is this cost share program? How much money is out there for these practices? So our cost share rates, they sometimes change annually just based on a variety of factors, but this is the cost share rate that was just voted on and came into effect July 1. So most of the practices are reimbursed at a rate of 80% of actual costs up to a max per application. So it sounds like there's a double cap, and that kind of is the case. It's basically whichever one you reach first. So whether that be 80% of actual costs or the max application. Some of the practices have a per unit rate. So rainwater harvesting, impervious surface removal, permeable pavement, and green roof. Yeah, those are the four. So again, it's still kind of a double cap where you would calculate based on that per unit rate, and you could only receive up to the max per application. Any individual can receive up to $50,000 in funding, so long as you are treating separate issues. So if you have erosion on both sides of your house and you want to have 2 rain gardens and that makes sense for those 2 issues, then you can apply and you can submit 2 separate applications, essentially is what I'm saying. So this is a wonderful thing. This is kind of the next step in my mind in water quality improvement, in getting communities on board with water quality improvement, is helping fund these practices. So there's an education component here that is kind of unwritten into this program. Again, there's that pollinator, that habitat success is unwritten into this program. It's based on water quality, but everyone, state and even beyond, is seeing the writing on the wall that we need to support individuals in improving water quality. And that's what VCAP is. So the VCAP process is, I just want to run through this for you guys. The first step, like I mentioned in the beginning, is you have to reach out to your district. So that's why I wanted you to figure out which district you were in, go to that website. It's because all of our applications have to be initially processed by the district that you live in, or in some cases, one that is nearby and supporting that work. So reach out to your district and schedule a site assessment. And the district staff will come to your house, talk with you about your concerns, and determine if you are eligible for VCAP based on a host of factors. Again, do you have that resource concern? Is the site capable of handling a BMP? And a couple other things. Some of the districts have a site scheduling form on their website and some do not. So you just need to go to your district and see which one that they have. After that, if the district staffer works with you, offers their technical experience, and determines that it makes sense to install a BMP, you could reach out to a contractor and come up with that design plan. Or if you have the knowledge and skills, you could create that design plan yourself and come up with a cost estimate associated with it. We need that cost estimate to create an idea of how much cost share you might be receiving. The applications are reviewed by your local district board because they're the ones that maintain that paperwork, conduct the site visit, and conduct future inspections. And then applications approved by the district come to a steering committee who reviews the applications for meeting specifications, essentially that they're going to do the water quality improvement that we need. And the steering committee is made up of district staffers that are very knowledgeable, have that skill set to look at the application. So these are native plant experts, these are engineers, these are folks that are working on the ground every day. Once your application is approved by the steering committee, you would be notified and you could begin that installation. And you must begin installation within 90 days of notification. And then you have until June 1st of the year following to finish your project. So if your project was approved from the steering committee in January of 2022, you have until June 1st of 2023 to finish the practice. If you were approved in December, you have a slightly shorter amount of time. And that has to do with our grants. Once the practice is installed, you would tell the district staffer you worked with for that initial site assessment, and they would come out and take some photos, make sure it was approved according to the application that you submitted, and they would submit a request for reimbursement from the association. And it would be reviewed by the steering committee and approved, and we would send your reimbursement check. So at that point, it's just maintaining the practice and reaching out if you need help or advice on maintaining your practice for the next 10 years. There's a lot of information, but the important thing to take away here is that the district helps you with all of this. They can help you with that site assessment. They can help you with the design plan or finding contractors. They can help you select that BMP. They can help every step of the way. You're not alone. So since VCAP was founded in 2016, we have distributed $4 million in cost share, which in my mind is like, imagine the water quality improvement that has come from $4 million. It's incredible. And because the program does not cover 100% of costs, there are homeowner contributions. That means we have even more than that has been put on the ground essentially to improve local habitats and protect water quality. So the buy-in is incredible. And we have had 6.5 million in grant funding, and that's because we have a small portion of that funding that goes to the association to fund the administration, and also to the districts to fund their work and their technical assistance on the ground. Over 700 projects have been approved, and most of them are conservation landscaping and permeable pavers. Conservation landscaping because it's a very accessible practice, and permeable pavers because for whatever reason, it moves through neighborhoods. Once one person gets one, every other neighbor is like, oh, this is so cool, I want that too. So permeable pavers is kind of a popular community practice where everyone wants it once it's available. So this is a map of where those practices have occurred. And the reason there aren't very many in the Southern Rivers portion of Virginia as of yet is because it wasn't available to that portion of Virginia for as long. So my hope is that in 2 years or 3 years, we are going to have an even spread of those blue points all across Southern Rivers as much as the rest of Virginia and the Eastern Shore, because everyone is going to benefit from VCAP. And whether you're in the Chesapeake Bay watershed or Southern Rivers, you deserve to have that beautiful functional practice. Now, here is the next step for VCAP. So we just received $4 million from the state to continue our work to spend over the next 2 years. And 25% of that funding is to be used in low-income geographic areas. So that's the expression that came from the state budget. And it's determined based on census data. Now, because of the nature of the program, we really haven't been meeting the needs of the community at large. So this is kind of our next step to make the program more accessible, more equitable. And we are trying to consider as many different strategies as we can to make the program accessible. So we might be changing our advertising, the partners that we work with, our payment strategies. We know that the game needs to change to make the program accessible, and the next 2 years are really going to be that. And we are trying to open to more localities. So those areas that are not currently represented by a district, we want you guys to have access to. So one of our districts is working with Hampton. They're voting next week, hopefully, on kind of being served by their closest district and allowing their citizens to have access to VCAP. And then fingers crossed, Richmond will vote soon as well. So for those of you that were in Newport News or in these other cities that are not currently served, you can reach out to your locality, to your city council or board of supervisors and tell them about VCAP and say, hey, we should be able to have access this as well. And then you can start that conversation with the district that's closest to you to serve your locality. So for you guys, your next steps, if you are interested in a BMP or you want to help your neighbor or your family member, you reach out to your district to set up that site visit. And again, if your locality is not within the district, you can reach out to your locality's representatives. So again, however that works for you guys are, to express interest in joining a district. Now, Richmond residents, if you guys are interested, because you guys are coming up next, I have a form for you guys that I will try to share on the chat. Let's see. And you guys can fill this out, and I just want to make it, one second, put this in the chat. So if you express interest on this form I just put in the chat, it's for people that live in Richmond and would want to be contacted if and when we have a relationship with Richmond, and it might take months. So don't anticipate me reaching out immediately or the district that's going to serve Richmond reaching out immediately. But I don't want to miss this opportunity to connect with those people just because we're working on that relationship right now. So feel free to fill that out. Now, we're kind of reaching the end of my presentation. So I have one final silly question for you guys. And again, this is because of working with kids. I can't help myself. I love these types of questions. So the question is, which BMP are you? So this is like a BuzzFeed quiz where, you're trying to determine which vegetable you are, or, which Kardashian, I don't know. But I want you to think which BMP I talked about would represent you. And maybe you're like, oh, it's permeable pavers because I want permeable pavers. Perfectly legitimate reason. Or maybe you're like, I'm a conservation landscaping because I, am attracting good people into my life, like conservation landscaping attracts pollinators. It's whatever your reasoning is. I'm going to share a Menti again for you guys, and then you guys can answer. And chuckled because I love these questions. They're funny. All right, and you guys can click on the link in the chat, and I'm going to share my screen again. And it is I already got an answer. It is a poll like with bar charts. So I narrowed it down. You can only choose these things. All right, 1 for 1, conservation landscaping or living shoreline. I would love to know who is going to pick like an infiltration trench. What's going on in your brain? people are just really loving that conservation landscaping.
Hey, Blair, while the answers are coming in, we've got a question that I'm likely to answer. Greta wants to know who would be a locality representative. Is it the city council person? Is it a supervisor? Other? So you want to answer that one?
Yeah. So it would be your, just like you said, a city council person. So if you live in a city, it would be the city council person. If you live in a county, it would be your board of supervisors. If you live in a town, it would be your town council. So not necessarily your state representatives, or certainly not your federal representatives, more narrow than that, because that would be the group that would sign an MOU with the district.
And Blair, I believe that Greta lives in, I think she lives in Norfolk. Is Norfolk currently covered by a district, or is that underway? Okay.
It is not covered by a district as of yet. It isn't to say it couldn't happen, but it starts with citizens like you guys. And I will say some of the districts, or I'm sorry, some of the localities have their own program. I don't believe that's the case with Norfolk, but I want you just to be aware of that too. I hope that you participate in VCAP or reach out to your city council person anyway, so that you can increase the number of opportunities to folks that live with you in your unit. All right, I think we've kind of slowed down on our BMP answer. We've got 4 conservation landscaping. I agree. I'd probably say it was a rain garden. 2 green roofs, 2 living shorelines, an infiltration trench, and 1 permeable paver. So I'm just gonna guess in my head why people would choose these things. Maybe as a green roof, you like the sun, or as a living shoreline, you just survive rough seas. So again, whatever your reason is, I just hope the silly question brought a smile to your face. So I will stop sharing my screen and see if we have any more questions.
Okay. Yeah, Greta says she does live in Norfolk, and the Elizabeth River Project provides some similar assistance, but much lower cost share matching amounts. So, yeah, so there's a couple people. Elizabeth has had her hand raised for a while, and I don't know if that was an accident. So I'm going to unmute you, Elizabeth, and if you want to ask your question.
Yes. How do you identify a good engineer to work with to help come up with a good design?
So I say engineer, but it means anyone that has a professional engineering seal. So contractors will a lot of times have them, or these companies that do these a lot. So permeable paver companies. The district can help you with that, identify someone local. But typically, if they have listed on their capabilities the BMP that you want, they're going to meet our standards. But districts will help.
So Blair, do the districts have a list of contractors for things like permeable pavers, and do they have a list of landscape designers, for example? Okay.
Yeah. So yes and no. So they do informally, and that's largely because we can't be preferring any one contractor over another. So you could choose any contractor that you would like, or landscaper. And if you are a contractor or a landscaper, contact your district and say, I'm interested in being on this kind of informal list. But some of them do, just to make things easier. And some districts even offer trainings for contractors so that they can become like VCAP knowledgeable. So again, depends on your local district.
Okay, we've got a question from Lydia, and this is very similar to one we had at the very, very beginning, which is we recently had a native rain garden installed with a conservation landscaper. Would we be eligible for cost share, or is this for new projects only?
it guts me to say this, but you would not be eligible. The practice can't have started installation yet. So if you are thinking right now, oh, I have thought about a rain garden and I'm interested, and you want cost share, halt. If a district staffer comes out and sees work has begun, you would be ineligible. And I see the question about Henrico. So Henrico is a part of the program. They're very active. Henricopolis is your district, and you would reach out to Stacy Heflin.
Let's see, I'm gonna take, nope, not still there. Okay. Yeah, we had one more raised question. Hey, I've got a couple questions. You know me, Blair. Just to confirm, so will VCAP reimburse for the design and install, or just the install?
Design and install, and even invasive species management on the site.
Okay.
There are some kind of funny narrow parameters. So for instance, for rainwater harvesting, pumps are not eligible, which I'm not quite sure the origin story of that, but that is the case. But yes, the design is included.
Gail wants to know if Fairfax County in Northern Virginia has this program.
Fairfax County does. Fairfax City has a special MOU with Northern Virginia, as does Alexandria. So Northern Virginia they have quite a network up there because there are so many cities.
Excellent. Adrian, so I just unmuted you so you can ask your question. I see you've raised your hand.
Okay. Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, good evening. I'm Adrian Willing. I'm a CBLP, independent native plant landscaping contractor in Prince William County, and also service Fairfax County. My question is, Fairfax and Prince William are both extremely competitive for VCAPs. I've started projects in both where myself and the client intended to submit a VCAP application. Then once we engaged with the POC for the respective VCAP district, they basically told us up front, like, hey, your particular project or your issue just simply does not rise to the level that would, get it through, through the end zone, so to speak, because of the amount of applications that are coming in those districts. So my question to you is what can we do as independent consultants and contractors to try and make our VCAP applications more successful or more likely to be approved, and without exaggerating the issues that the client might be facing? Over.
Yeah, that's a great question. So that situation is kind of a thing of the past because we have so much funding. So VCAP became very popular very quickly, and our funding sources just couldn't keep up. It takes a long time to write grant applications and receive that funding. But now we have twice as much money as we've ever had for the next 2 years. So if your application meets eligibility requirements, so again, it's you are non-agricultural site. I'm sorry, my cat's being very loud. And you are treating a resource concern. And for our contractors, there is a ranking sheet, but it really is just showing a water quality improvement. You have that and you're meeting specifications, it should be approved. So now is the time to apply and not to wait, because we've got this money for 2 years, but if it's really popular, maybe it'll start to run out. But right now, we've got money. So Adrian, go back to those people if you didn't complete a project with them and say the money is available, and let's get the practices in. And Prince William just hired 3 new staffers, so put them to work.
That's great. Hey, Heidi James, who lives in Lynchburg, she said she checked the on this a year or two ago, and this program was not available in the Lynchburg area. So I guess that's Peaks of Otter. And for a while, they didn't have it, but I think they do now, right?
They do. So Peaks of
Okay.
Otter offers VCAP, and their district staffer, Tracy Culbertson, will help you. And you can reach out to that district, ask them about it. And if anything else happens, please give me a ring, let me know. Like you saw, there's some districts that have never had a practice before. So maybe you guys need to be the first. And I can help shepherd the district staff through it. The district staff can help shepherd you. So we're here for you, and every district has the opportunity to offer it. And I see, I think we're in Robert E. Lee. Yeah, your address might say Lynchburg, but you might be in like Amherst or something like that. Robert E. Lee can offer VCAP. And if the district staff are busy, they're trying to put agricultural BMPs on the ground, we can work with a neighboring district and with Robert E. Lee to kind of help you out.
So, okay. I'll let you answer Paul Wiley's question in just a second, but let me ask this one real quick. So in your slides, you said you've got 90 days from the beginning to install. And I'm trying to figure out, like, as a landscaper, I am hot for my plants to go in the month of October or November. I really don't want to be planting them in August or in July. So back me up for like how long what does that sort of application window look like, so that somebody can plan to say, okay, my install, I want it to be September, October, November.
Yeah. So quick clarification. I'm not sure I said this clearly. You need to begin installation. You don't have to finish anything. So it depends on the practice. I'm hoping we don't want you to have bare ground for months and months. That's making the problem worse. And exactly like you said, you also don't want to be planting your plants at a poor time, but that's to kind of keep things moving. And especially with, what is the word I'm looking for? Supply chain delays. We've been seeing that 90 days kind of be hard. Now, how long does it take to actually get an application through? So it depends on your district. We accept applications to the steering committee every month, and it's the last Friday of the month. But it also has to be approved by your local district board. So theoretically, with a district staffer, it might take 6 weeks at a minimum. If you time it really well, I guess it could be 4 weeks, but that'd be pretty lucky. And it could be more if you are really struggling to find a landscaper or a contractor that you like, or that is creating a plan that you like. But 6 weeks would be a minimum. So I hope I answered that question correctly. There's a couple moving parts. And so let's say if you wanted to plant in October, I would be reaching out in August. And if you want to plant in early April, reach out in January, February. Yeah. Reach out now and you can just, you can get it done in 90 days. And I see we have this comment. This makes me happy. Great presentation. Thanks. I did a VCAP partially funded living shoreline in Matthews County, Tidewater, and it was the first of its kind in Matthews, and it is filled in beautifully. You showed a picture of the project in your presentation at installation, which I appreciate the picture. Obviously, it was a great practice if I was showing the project. So thank you for participating. And if you want to come back and if you have another resource concern and want conservation landscaping, let us know.
So I got another question for you.
Yeah.
Does the practice have to be attached to the deed, right? Like for a resident, is that a requirement?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that, Anne. So because the practice has to be maintained for 10 years, if you sell your home, that maintenance needs to pass on to the next person, the next owner, or you pay back whatever is the equivalent for the time remaining. So if you've lived in that house for 5 years since install and then you sell it and you're not going to maintain it, or the next homeowner isn't, you can repay that cost share at a 50% rate. So it does move with the house, I guess is what I'd say. Stay with it.
Gotcha. Do you see John Wessel's question? Do all plants have to be native?
Yes. So right now, yes, they all have to be native and based on the flora of Virginia. And again, that's because we want that benefit associated with native plants, that they are helping pollinators and they are able to survive in Virginia's sometimes very harsh climate. And they have those really deep, stable roots to help infiltrate that water, help treat that pollution. So they have benefits that we might not see otherwise. And some of the plants that are sold at some places are not only not native, but they can be invasive and harmful. So that's part of why we've kind of made this blanket request for natives. There's a whole deeper conversation there about cultivars, but use the flora of Virginia.
Oh, that was my next question, which is whether or not cultivars were accepted, right? So, I mean, I guess I'm thinking about winterberry and knowing that you got to have a male and a female, and you know, Jim Dandy is the male and Sprite is the female. So, but I'm assuming those are cultivars. So, how does it have to be straight species?
So yes, but also no, you know, it's challenging. Not every part of Virginia offers straight species. They can be very hard to access. If there is an option that is a straight species, we are going to ask for it. There are certain cultivars that are very popular and still provide the benefits that we're asking for these natives. Sometimes there's species that are shorter, or maybe they don't spread as much. So they're offering you that aesthetic, but they're still providing the benefit of natives. It's when you get into the cultivars that are like, look nothing like the original, they don't have that pollinator attraction anymore. And sometimes they are non-reproducing. And those cultivars are really where we start to have an issue, because those plants, whether they were derived from a native, or if they're derived from a native, they will not reproduce, they will not survive climate change. So that's a big piece of it, is the longevity of these practices.
Excellent. We don't have any other questions. We've exhausted all of mine. So wait a minute, one more.
Oh yeah.
Don Masters, yeah. So Arlington keeps a list of landscape pros who've gone through training. Also CBLP os.org. I think it's just CBL has certified BMP installers in Virginia.
Yes. So CBLP is the Chesapeake Bay Landscape Professionals Program and is CBLP certified. And I'm going to training next week, actually. We're using it to make our own certification program for district staff. But this program is incredible, and they have trained staff to do these native installs. So if you're looking for a contractor or landscaper, it's a great place to start. And if you are a contractor or a landscaper, it's a great program to go through. And they cover a lot of the basics that VCAP has as specifications.
Yeah, if you have the chance, that CBLP directory, it's easy to go online, and you can also select the zip code where you're trying to find somebody, as well as the practice that you want to install. Paul, can you define what maintenance means and entails?
Yes. So unfortunately, it's slightly different for every practice. This is kind of getting more nitty gritty than maybe some of you need, but we have a manual associated with the program that outlines the specifications and the maintenance requirements. So for living shorelines in these planted practices, it's maintaining 75% planting cover when the plants are mature. And keeping invasive species out. And then for like a living shoreline, it would be maintaining that sill. For a rainwater harvesting system, that cistern, it's maintaining the piping structures that go into the cistern itself, and then continuing to use your water use plan and draining it during the winter. So something like that. Let me see. Permeable pavers, it's again sweeping it, keeping it clear of debris. And if your locality has it available, vacuuming, or sometimes companies will do it. So when we do that maintenance inspection, which comes up randomly, we use a random number generator to pick the practices that are inspected. We have a test or like a device that measures the infiltration to make sure it's still working.
That's so cool. I didn't know how they were measured.
There you go.
All righty. So thank you everybody for joining us. It looks like we have no more questions. And yeah, so big show of hands and applause for Blair. You did a great job. And it was, we'll also send the link to the recording out as soon as we get this up on YouTube. And then you can watch Blair multiple times. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for spending part of your Wednesday night with us. We appreciate it. Take care,
Thank you
everybody.
guys.
All righty. Bye-bye.